Just like our next hour is going to be about a lot of communication and awareness, and just getting to understand rights and rights of the minorities. Today, specifically, the rights of transgender. Adrian Kibe is a transgender rights champion. He works with the Kenya Human Rights Commission, and he was involved in a case, a landmark case that was there in the courts. He has also had similar instance. But before we get into all that, Adrian, thank you for joining us. Karibu sana.
Thank you, Latif.
This is where we have all these conversations. But first, we start with a quote. So Jano is going to give you a quote.
Yes. So the quote today is by Ngugi wa Mirie, and he once said, "A nation that stops questioning begins to rot." What comes to mind when you hear that?
That we must constantly learn.
Yeah.
And the minute we stop learning, we stop growing, we stop considering each other, we stop being able to accommodate each other.
Yeah.
Wow.
We must be
like
open
that.
to learning. I wanted to talk about this landmark ruling in two ways. It's telling us why it was a landmark ruling, but also what it means for you personally.
Right.
Right. Thank you so much. And so, because this case involves a transgender person, the person in the audience might be wondering who is a transgender person. So that's where I'd like us to start. And for us to understand who a transgender person is, we must understand what is sex, what is gender. And so what exactly is sex? Sex is the biological makeup of a person. Everybody has a sex. And there are three sexes. It is the male, female, or intersex, right? For purposes of the person listening who might not know who an intersex person is, an intersex person is a person whose sex does not fit into the categories of male and female, typically. And there are over 47 variations. It could sometimes is a gonadal situation, a chromosomal situation, and such. A gender itself is a person's understanding of who they are and how they express themselves. So two things, who you are and how you express. Now, the part on who you are is something called gender identity. So gender identity is a person's internal self, understanding of self as it relates to gender, okay? That is, who am I? I am a woman, I am a man. That is gender identity. Now, how they express is, you can see I'm in a suit, a lovely one. Latif is in a polo shirt, right? That is gender expression, how you show this gender, right? And so there are people whose gender identity or gender and sex don't align. To understand this, I'll use the two of you as an example. Janet, say you woke up and you were in Latif's body. You as Janet, the way you are, the way you understand yourself, were in Latif's body. How would you feel?
I would have to wake up in Latif's body to know how I'd feel.
You would Freaky Friday.
If I woke and I don't recognize myself and I don't know what to do, I'd be frazzled, I'd be thrown off.
Exactly. You'd be confused.
I'd be
You would be
confused,
distressed. You would be depressed. Now that distress is something called gender dysphoria. And it is something that is experienced by transgender persons.
Excuse me.
Yes.
For Janet to be confused, she'd be confused because she knows the Janet that she is today.
Exactly.
And then tomorrow she wakes up and realizes,
What is this body?
I was light-skinned yesterday. Today, I am too dark.
Exactly.
Okay.
So there's the part of...
I still sound the same.
Yeah. Because isn't that sudden?
for
Isn't
Janet.
there a gradual,
Right?
isn't there dysmorphia more gradual, or is it as sudden as waking up the next day?
No.
Do you change?
No, you do not change.
So Janet...
I'm like, let Andrew explain.
Because that's what I was
I think he
asking.
was using that
So
as a way to just show you the disconnect between what you see
And what you feel and who you identify as.
Yeah.
Which is actually the basis of my question on the identity. But continue.
So there's no confusion at all. Janet remains Janet. Her understanding of herself is as Janet, who is a woman. Okay? So there's no confusion at all. And this is the same thing for transgender persons, right? And so there's a disconnect with the sex that you're given at birth and your gender identity. So some people will ask, what is the science? Let's jump right quick into the science. So there are 3 professors who were asked to find the cause of gender dysphoria. And one Professor Goren, who is a professor of endocrinology at the Free University Hospital in Amsterdam. And the findings of their report were as follows: that there is something called sexual differentiation. And this sexual differentiation is the process to which a person becomes a man or a woman. What we traditionally assume is that the minute you are born and you form genitals, that is the end of sexual differentiation. But he says that no, it does not happen that way. It happens in stages. And the first stage is what he calls chromosomal configuration. So where you have the XX if you're female and the XY if you're male, right? Then after that, there's the gonadal differentiation. After the gonadal differentiation, we have now the formation of internal and external genitalia. And the final process is where now the brain forms the male or female brain. Together.
There's a male and female brain.
The male and female brain. And this showcases itself in how a person conducts themselves. Now, for transgender persons, on that last stage, we have the brain doing an Uno reverse. Where, for example, a person like myself, or born female, XX chromosomes, gonads are formed female, okay? The genitalia also female, but then the brain does an Uno reverse where now the identity itself, the understanding of self is male. Okay? Now, with that, now comes the dysphoria, because there are two different things. The body is saying one thing, but the brain is saying another thing. The hardware is different from the software. So what happens in this case? And Professor Goren describes this as a natural phenomenon. It just happens to a minority, a small group of human beings, right? And so what happens to elevate this issue of gender dysphoria? Transgender persons do what is called transitioning. Now, there are three kinds of transitioning. There's the social transitioning, where a person will dress the way they identify as. They'll use a name that they identify as, right, with the gender that they identify as. Then there's the medical, which is surgeries, hormonal replacement therapy. This is to align the hardware to the software. Okay? And then lastly is the legal transition, which we are going to be talking about in detail as it relates to this case. Now, on legal recognition, this is about changing of names and gender markers to align with the person and the gender identity.
Okay, I got so on the question of now that identity at that point of the gender dysphoria, so even the prof is saying biologically we know there's a chromosomal formation of the child. You've got the XX, you're going to be female. You've got the XY, you're going to be male. And that would then go into how your genitalia forms and how your physical body forms, right? The part of the brain is, what is there a scientific description of it? Like, are we saying, because we already know there's XX and XY chromosome, is there something in science on male brain and female brain? Like scientifically acknowledged. Like Mariam today has
my frontal lobe is this
female.
way, so that's female. And then the frontal lobe, if it's facing the other side, it's male or something like that.
So I'm not a scientist, but what I know is that the way the male brain looks like, the way it responds to certain things and aspects is going to be different from how a female brain responds and operates. And what is interesting is I, as a transgender man with XX chromosomes, as you are saying, and female genitalia, when you look at my brain and how it responds to things, Latif, it is going to be the same as yours. If you put SC, who's a transgender woman, in this kind of a setting, and you look at the way her brain responds, whether it's to emotions and to other things, it will be exactly like Janet's.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's very, as young kids, the way we see them as they're growing, a girl will respond and react different from how a boy is responding and reacting. And say, it's boyish behavior, boyish doing this, girl
Boys
doing
will
this.
be boys.
Yeah. It's that. So it's natural. Okay? That's what you're saying.
Yes.
It's natural.
Yes.
But then, at what point do you now get that dysphoria? Because you grow up as you.
Exactly. Good.
You're growing up as... I grew up as Eric, okay?
Yeah.
I did not know all those things. I'm learning today about my brain being male and all. But I also learned in school about the chromosomes and all. But I didn't have an issue. I was not confused about who I was. At what point were you getting confused about this identity?
Thank you, Latif. And then I want to state this categorically for anybody listening and for you, Latif, as well. The same way you are not confused about being Eric and Latif is the same way I'm not also confused. Transgender persons are not confused. There is no confusion at all. So I will give my own story, and I'll also start diving into the case because SC also gives us her story, right? Growing up, I was born and I was born female because they checked my genitalia and they said it's a bouncing baby girl, and they gave me to my mother. But even from the very beginning, I remember as early as 3 years old, I was already inclined to more masculine things. I was playing with the boys. I liked being rough. I liked hanging out with my dad more. Like, it was that kind of a
climbing
situation.
Trees,
yeah, climbing trees, that kind of a situation. And even for SC, we see that from the age of 5, she says she was dressing like a girl. She was playing with girls. She was dressing up. All the things that girls would do, she liked doing as well.
Okay.
And that, of course, her family at some point thought that, as you were saying, and anybody else would put it, that she was confused or that she had some mental issues. But no, ultimately, when they got to understand her and accept her, they accommodated her. And in fact, she says that her father used to call her, and I'm not very good with Kalenjin, but Chepkony, which just translates to my daughter. So that kind of a situation. And with regards to whether transgender persons have any mental health issues, no. Transgenderism itself is not a mental disorder. The World Health Organization says that it is just, they describe gender dysphoria as a diagnostic term. So it's just a term that we use to say, okay, what is this distress? How do we call it? What do we name it? But it's not a mental health condition, okay? And the way to deal with gender dysphoria directly is to transition. We have seen tremendous studies that show that once a person transitions, they're able to live their life, and this distress is significantly reduced. There's no cure, it's just manageable.
And you've called it dysphoria. I've heard it being described as gender identity disorder. Is that more condescending? Is that, or does that exist as something separate?
Thank you. So for that, the DSM-4, which is the diagnostic manual for diagnosing mental health conditions, the DSM-4 had it as a gender identity disorder. But with science, as time goes by and as things progress and studies are done, people get to understand things further. And so it was removed as a disorder. And now it's just gender dysphoria, which is a diagnostic term to describe the distress that transgender persons go through.
Okay. You're going to ask them.
Yeah, no, I was going to talk about the person that we're referring to in and the case.
Yes.
SC.
Yes.
Those are the initials of her name. Okay?
Yeah.
And was born male.
Yes.
As Hillary Kiprotich.
Yes.
But identified and lived as female from childhood.
Yes.
And like you're saying, even the father started calling her, my daughter at an early age. But in 2019 at MTRH, she was arrested and charged with personation under Penal Code 382.
Yes.
Initially detained in the women's section of Eldoret Police Station, remanded at Eldoret Women's Prison. Prison strip search revealed male genitalia. Court ordered gender determination. He was taken to the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital for tests, underwent genital exams, radiology, hormone testing, blood sampling, allegedly without the consent and beyond what the court had ordered. And this is what made her to then file a constitutional petition seeking recognition as transgender, protection of her rights, damages, and to demand prison law reforms. This is the case that will be taking us through because you participated in this particular case, and the Kenya Human Rights Commission was as an interested party in this one.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the background of the person that we were talking about, SC, in this particular story.
Yes.
But I want to come back into Adrian.
Yes.
Okay? Because even you have also gone through, as you're growing up as Adrian, when you were going to school and when you're using facilities, you're in school, are you going to the girls' facilities or are you going to the boys' facility?
Good.
When did you go to boarding school?
Shortly.
Okay. Right? So if you go to school, do you go to a boys' school, to a girls' school? And all those kind of, at that young age, in this particular section where you are dealing with a community that doesn't understand all these things, and you're dealing with many people, aside from your family, who just know you as Adrian, and they expect you to be Adrian from top to bottom.
Okay. So with regards to facilities, I'll start there and I'll slowly move to what challenges are experienced by transgender persons so that then people can understand why this case was significant. So in terms of facilities, because at the time, my documentation and who I was completely female, right? So I was in a girls' school, right? But then when it came to issues of facilities, I would shy away a lot. In fact, I was in a boarding school for very few years. And I kept moving from school to school because of that kind of a discomfort. I don't know, Janet, whether you went to a boarding school. Sometimes people shower in
Open doors.
mass showering.
Yeah,
What is
yeah.
it called?
Yeah.
And
Communal
Just-
showering, yeah.
and so I would wake up at 3 a.m. just so that I'm in the showers alone. Right? It was very uncomfortable because who you are and who you understand yourself as is not something that everybody else is getting. So in terms of facilities like washrooms and all that, I would try, and showers, I would try and ensure that I'm alone. Nobody else is there. And everything is locked. You confirm the lock
Yeah,
more
twice.
than 3 times, you know?
Yeah.
In terms of school, I am one of the privileged transgender persons who was able to finish school, go to university, has a degree, is working. That is not the reality of many transgender persons. And I will go back to some of the challenges that we face because of the lack of legal recognition, right? So today when I was coming here, they asked me for my ideas I was working in. And I realized, do people understand how important an ID is? That is the most difficult document for a transgender person to get. It took me 3 years to get my ID.
Why?
These are the challenges. The process, number one, is not well articulated. How does a transgender person change their name and gender marker? The only provisions that are there are for changing of names. And this is done through a process called a deed poll. Now, the same way Janet would be able to change her name if she gets married, wants to take the husband's name, that way. The same way if you, Latif, are going
She
for a
wants to call us
political...
to add another name like Dada.
if you...
Dada Janet. Logo.
if you...
Actually, sorry, Jenna, but that would slap.
It's landed.
For her political, she has political ambitions.
That's exactly what I was saying. If you have political ambitions that people know you as the hammer, you want to add that, right? You do it through a deed poll process. So that is what is there. However, there are no provisions for people to change their gender markers, right? And then also the process itself, the way it is stipulated, it doesn't seem as though it is clear on how a person moves from Anita to Adrian. Get. So because of that, there's extensive delays. And once you do the deed poll, now you apply for a new identification card. When you do that application for a new identification card, now that is where the rubber meets the road. I have colleagues, we started this name change process together, and it's been 5 years, they still don't have their IDs.
Wow.
How were you able to get ahead? Was this just your knowledge of the system or
Luck.
luck, really?
Luck.
Okay.
Because we did the same thing. So I cannot explain how I got it and he wasn't able to.
And they didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
What did you do? Walk me through it.
Yes.
Process, yeah.
The
At
process.
birth, your birth certificate came out
Yes.
with your name at birth
Yes.
and your gender marker at birth,
Yes.
which is female. At what point did you change your birth certificate? Did you have to?
So
And then at the point of application, because I'm assuming at the point of application, you apply with your birth certificate. And here you're coming to apply as Adrian, male. And you're like, ule mtoto alizaliwa, ile siku nasema ulizaliwa, alikuwa msichana.
na huyu umeleta hapa
Na
ni
huyu
nani?
anakuja hapa ni nani?
So the deed poll process, the way it is done, you don't have to have changed your birth certificate. If here Janet wants to take up somebody's name, she's not going to have to change her birth certificate as well, right? So we do it through the deed poll process, and the deed poll process, the way it is stipulated, is you just provide the documents that you have, and then you do affidavits, and then you apply for the change of name. So you attach a lot of documents, and then
Right.
once that
Change
is
of
done,
name. Does that
That's
change gender?
Gender, yeah.
exactly, and now that is a matter that we're in court for. So no, it does not change your gender marker. So because again, the stipulation of the deed poll process is on changing of names, only names. There's nothing on changing of
Gender.
markers. So
So if you have an ID,
yes, and I have it with me
you
today.
swear all these affidavits
Yes.
that say I'm changing Anita to Adrian. Cool. The new ID will come out Adrian
Yes.
with the gender marker female.
Yes. And that is where the problem is.
Yeah. Because legally, in other countries, what happens? Like the countries that have progressed further, what does it look like that can be applied here?
Good. So we look at the case of, for example, Botswana, which has the most progressive and most recent court ruling, where they allow for the change of gender marker as well. So it would just read Adrian Kibe, male, because that is what you see. It is a gender marker. And we started by saying gender is who you understand yourself as and how you express. You see, no one wants to know about your sex. No one wants to know what happens on the inside. right? They just want to know who is this person that I am seeing.
What they see on the outside.
Exactly.
Adrian, there's one or two questions.
Yes, yes.
Allow me to ask them. They're from the viewers.
Yeah.
Flag, if they're okay to ask. Emmanuel Templar, and I think you've already explained this. Is the transgender name a biological case of two sexual organs? The answer is no, that's intersex. I shouldn't answer, I should let Adrian answer. So Emmanuel is asking, is this transgender name a biological case of two sexual organs? Is it the same as hermaphrodite?
Okay, so hermaphrodite is, first of all, it is a derogatory term, so we do not use that anymore. And that what they're describing as two organs is what many people would say is an intersex person. But as I said, or if I did not say, let me say now, there are over 47 variations of intersex persons, and no, the two are not the same.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I have a lot of questions. Let me begin.
Let me just ask this one, because I think it will be related.
Okay.
Does Kenya recognize transgender?
Yes. Now it does because of this new.
Okay,
policy.
after the case. All right.
Yeah.
So, Maria.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
So we'll come back to that. Quick one. Qualitative tests. You've said to clear up the fact that there is no confusion as far as your gender and the way your brain operates, right, as a transgender person. So if you identify as female, your brain works the female brain way, if there's such a thing, right? Not used to the terminologies. Are there qualitative tests that definitively tell you that your brain is female or male? So as a way to just shut down any questions.
Any naysayers, any questions.
Any naysayers. Because I don't know, my understanding of gender is a spectrum. I think of things that are gender markers, and then it's a spectrum. You exist somewhere on it. I am a woman, but there's some things I do that are very apparently tomboy or boyish or whatever. It's like, I don't know. So then when it's a spectrum, how do you find something qualitative and definitive? Yeah.
So the study that I mentioned was a study that was done in 1999. And so, of course, there's been more progress in terms of people's further understanding of gender. So what you're talking about, gender being a spectrum that people lie at a certain point, right? But for purposes of this conversation and the purposes of the viewer that is listening to understand, first of all, the very basics, right? I will stick to this kind of study, this study that was done by Professor Goren. And as to qualitative tests.
So it's not a spectrum, or
it is a spectrum.
But
it is
for now, we stick to.
For now, for people to understand, I want
make it
it's
basic.
as basic as
Okay.
possible.
Yes.
Male, female. Okay.
Yeah. Right. So about the qualitative tests. So right now. First of all, we are fighting on the issue of legal recognition for people to just say, okay, yes, they exist, they are here, they are people. Then now to, okay, how do we accommodate and what can be done with regards to them, their lives and etc. But in countries that there has been more progress, there definitely are a number of things that they are able to do to ascertain. These studies are done in this way. Yeah.
How? Okay. Could I ask the how? Because
how the studies are done.
I'm just thinking through.
Yes.
If it's a brain, if this side of your brain lights up versus this side of your brain lights up, then it's an easy yes or no.
So I'm not privy to exactly how they are done.
Okay.
But I know that they have their own mechanisms to which they use.
Okay.
Should there be something like that? Because you see, like in the case of SC, whose court case we're talking about here, that got us into this position. The court ordered tests.
Yes.
And this was because there was a dispute here. The dispute here is that this person has been taken to a female prison, and then the search that is done for prisoners sees that this is a male person.
Yeah.
And so she goes to court and says, I am female. And the court says, I want to establish, I don't want your word versus he said, I want a professional to come and tell this court who this person is. So in such a case, what should a hospital do? Because the hospital can come and say, genitalia, male, physical behavior, female, identity, female. So 2 for female, 1 for male, therefore.
So,
and also, should we be, Is there something problematic about subjecting people to tests
Definitely.
to prove their gender? I think there's also that. We have to be honest about that, because no one will come to me and ask me, Boo, let me hook your brain up to the nodes to check which side lights up so you can prove you're a woman.
Yeah.
You know.
So what you're talking about is called pathologization of transgender bodies. Kizungu mingi, but kizungu mingi to just basically say using them as a specimen and trying to use medical things to try and see who they are. But to answer Latif's question, with regards to SC, when the court ordered for a gender determination, what happened was that SC was taken to MTRH, where they were stripped, first of all. When they were stripped, they were forcefully, they had tests forcefully done on them. They were in full view of medical personnel, they were in full view of patients, they were in full view, people who had no business knowing what was happening. And again, she was completely stripped at that point, right? And what they were trying to find out is what her gender is. But what have we described gender as? It is a person's understanding of self. How will we know a person's understanding of self? By talking to them.
And seeing them one-on-one, seeing them as that person.
I have an issue. Are you saying that we should just take it like that?
So
That we should take their word for it, yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
No. Look, when you were born and the hospital assigned you the female gender, and your mother and father also went with you as a female gender, and you grew up and identified as female, right? When you went to school, you were not asked, are you male or female? It's how you are presented, right? And the mother is one who just came and said, wewe, ni msichana, right? We go with that because that's how it entered into the official records. And there's a reason why it was done that. The medical person present said, we have seen this is male or female.
Yes.
Okay? Now here is Adrian later coming to say that I identify as this. Now, should we just take their word for it at that particular point? And how do we legalize people's words?
So
how do we legalize people's words?
What you're describing that the doctors said, this is who this person is sex. Now nobody is disputing a transgender person's sex. And even SC herself is not disputing her sex.
Okay.
That must be clear, that no transgender person is disputing their sex.
Until they...
There's no confusion on sex. There's no confusion anywhere.
Unless they change it medically.
So then the thing about what happened, and that's when you're talking about changing medically, that we're talking about transitioning, right? So Latif, I want us to separate two things. I want us to separate sex from gender. Okay. Once that separation happens, then you understand and see how one's sex could be different from their gender. And one of the things that Professor Goren actually says in the report that they give out is that it is very difficult for a person who does not get to experience gender dysphoria to understand or empathize with that situation. Because as Latif is saying, that is the way people would look at it and they would wonder, what do you mean, right? But, and I speak as somebody who has already transitioned, as you can see.
And we'll talk about transitioning in Kenya, but go on.
Yeah, as you can see, there's when you look at me, there's no contest as to whether I am who I say I am. And even with SC, when you look at her, there was no contest as to who she is. And that is why, from the beginning, she was put in a women's facility. Because her expression matches her identity. When you see her, you see no contest whatsoever about whether she's a woman or not. Right?
Yeah.
And so when the court ordered for a gender determination test, what the hospital did and what the office of the ODPP did was they were determining her sex. But again, we've said that the sex here is not in contest. We are not saying that this is not the sex, right? And so after that happened, and those violations were very heavy, because after that she's put in a male cell, and while there she's physically assaulted, because now you can imagine, you put a beautiful woman in a male cell, what happens? They say, first of all, what is this woman doing in this cell? She must be an informant. And they immediately now start harassing her, physically assaulting her, verbally assaulting her, and they wanted to strip her, but an officer intervened and removed her. Where was she placed? She was placed in a corridor. Again, in a corridor.
Okay.
Again, still very indignifying. And while there still, she was verbally assaulted, and they could still grope her through the bars. Yes. So that kind of violation is why we ended up in court. And in court, one of the things we wanted the court to first of all acknowledge is that the existence of transgender Kenyans in this country. Number two, to stipulate clear provisions on protection for transgender persons as envisioned in the Kenyan Constitution. Because Article 27 in the Bill of Rights talks about equality for all. In 7.1, it talks about equality for all persons. So a transgender person is a human being. So just the way you would have benefits and enjoyment of rights is the same way that they ought to be enjoying their rights. The same way they ought to be treated with dignity, you know, and things like that. So we went to court and we also sought damages, because you can imagine a situation where you are stripped, constantly stripped. And this is not the first time that SC is in contact with the law. If you read her story, and we will be releasing a documentary where she speaks her truth and says it herself, and I'd welcome the audience to look through our socials. We're going to be releasing it very soon, and you get to see her and tell her story. It was very traumatizing. It's not the first time that she's encountering custody in police. The first time she's put in a cell, she's put in a male cell, and while there she's sexually assaulted. And so, and this is not the first transgender case we have in terms of what happens when people are arrested. The first case happened in 2012. There's a ANN case versus the Attorney General. ANN was a transgender woman. And so for people to understand that transgender persons are persons like any other, and we live in the society, we are Kenyans like you. ANN was a woman, a transgender woman who used to sell things in the market. Her day-to-day was Bamamboga. She got into a quarrel with another lady in the market. The lady takes her to the police station. When she gets to the police station, she's taken into custody, and they start searching her. So they strip her. When they discover what they discovered, they call the media. And we see videos and photos. Toa hii, inua. You know, and all that, very indignifying. That was the first pronouncement that the courts made with regards to a similar case. And they said that even these searches ought to happen in a dignified way. And that itself was a violation of her human rights. And she's awarded compensation on that as well. And so this issue of AC is the second time that this is happening. But with this time round, the courts are very clear. They are clear that, one, transgender persons exist, they are here, and that they have rights like everybody, and they affirm the right to self-identify. The second thing that they do is they say, this is not the first time transgender persons are in court over the issue of legal recognition. It's not the first time we are saying that our rights are being violated. It's not the first time that we are saying we are in harm's way. We need some protection. He acknowledges that, Justice Nyakundi acknowledges that, and he goes a step further and says that the other arms of government now must act, whether it is in legislation, whether it is going to be a transgender act, whether it is going to be policies in place to make sure that there's accommodation of these people, that ought to start happening, because it's about time.
It's about time. Quickly, Adrian, beyond the indignity that has happened, for example, in the police cells, what's the daily reality like as well? And how do you navigate that, and even bringing it further into intergenerationally? I think, and this could be anecdotal, a young, largely open-minded demographic can help create a shift of acceptance. I could be wrong, but I think so, globally. So number one, what is the daily reality that you find yourself navigating? And number two, do you see an intergenerational shift helping in terms of acceptance? Maybe those two.
So what is the daily reality? Remember when I said, when I walked in here, they asked me for my ID. And I said, do people understand how important that ID document is? Without an ID, you can't access eCitizen. What does that mean? You can't get a SHIF. That means your health services, you also can't access them, because either way, if you enter into a hospital, they need to know who they are treating. So WAPI ID, so that we know who you are. You can't access buildings, right? You can't access transportation systems. There's JR Huwezi Panda without your ID. You also can't access financial facilities. Kama it's a hustler's fund, you can't get it. Kama ni M-Pesa, you can't get it. So the life itself is very difficult. When you look at education-wise, it also becomes very difficult for someone to join higher learning or vocational training or things like that, because they lack the documentation. And so the life of a transgender person is marred by difficulty on difficulty on difficulty. While I was waiting 3 years to get this ID, I lost scholarships, I lost opportunities, I lost jobs. Like, somebody wants to employ you, but now it's like, okay, boss, what are these documents? And we see a similar case with Audrey versus Neck, where Audrey, very brilliant transgender woman, went to court and said, listen, I have my A's here. I have done my very best to be able to finish even this degree with the difficulty that I have, but I can't use it. And again, we see a progressive pronouncement to the court saying, change her name, do away with the gender marker, because what do you need a gender marker for in an educational document?
Yeah. Very true.
Right? So it's a very difficult life, and without the legal recognition, you know what we call legal recognition? The right to be able to enjoy other rights, because it unlocks every other thing. With an ID, you have health. With an ID, you can open a bank account. You can do everything once you have an identification document. As to the intergenerational, I first of all, I must say that someone might say, oh, but you see, this transgender thing is just coming up. These are just young people who, for one reason or another. So I'll start historically. Are there trans people? Yeah. Yes, there are. I can name a few, and please forgive me if I butcher the wordings. The Mukodo Dako were essentially trans women in Uganda. They were born male, but then they identified as women, and they conducted, how do we know they identified? They conducted their roles in a feminine and a woman way. Not only those ones. We have the Inkotshana of the Zulu, who, similar thing, born male, but then they would undertake female roles. Now, is this a young phenomenon, Adrian? No. The oldest transgender person is about 60. But they've been able to navigate here and there, of course in hiding. But we have elderly persons that are transgender. It's not a new phenomenon, it's not a young phenomenon. Number two, it's not a rich people's phenomenon. Like I said, ANN, alikuwa mama mboga.
Yep. And our African communities held space for it, but they're very easily.
Yeah.
In a lot of space.
I was even asked about intergenerational acceptance. It wasn't so much about whether or not, because even when we started this show, we said they've been there.
Yeah.
It's just that, and it's just about because acceptance also is something that's needed. And I don't even call it tolerance, because tolerance is, I tolerate you. Yeah, but acceptance, and I was just wondering whether there's been a shift. But yeah, sorry, you're going to ask something.
No. Just to there's a lot I still want to get through, but I think for this conversation is to get through the basics. I think for me, I've moved a bit further ahead in the conversation, but let me bring myself back to transitioning. What does transitioning look like in Kenya? What identity do trans people bear before transition? And I mean that in a legal perspective, because as you can the sex and the gender, when they don't add up legally, what gray area is that? How do you transition? The cost of transitioning, how it's done in Kenya, if at all it's done in Kenya. Just walk me through all of
medical transition.
Yes, medical transition.
As well as there are 3 transitions.
Yes. So
social, medical, and legal.
Yes, social.
Social
the name
is you
and the change.
What you decide to do.
Yes.
Social is you and your people. Is me telling guys, don't call me Anita anymore. Just it's Adrian. It's me buying myself a nice suit. It's it's that kind of a thing. That is social. In the medical, we're talking about hormone replacement therapy, and we're talking about gender affirming surgeries. So that I do not confuse the audience, I will keep it as that basic. Is it possible in Kenya? Hardly. With great difficulty. There's a lot of fear, because there are no protections for any medical officer or personnel that is willing or might understand. Because what I've found is that Kenyan doctors and nurses really know these things. I've had situations where I've had to explain myself. Those that know. And then those ones that don't know really don't know.
Okay.
And can give you a very difficult time. But even if they would want to be able to assist this person to alleviate this gender dysphoria through this transitioning, it becomes very difficult, because what if there are no protections, there's no clear-cut guidelines on how to do it. And there was an attempt to create some of this. There's no regulation as well. It's a situation where somebody does a surgery on a transgender person and it ends up being botched. Where can this person go for redress? You understand? So it's very, very difficult for the medical bit. As per the legal, like I said, you do it through a deed poll process, but there are no specific provisions as to how that is done.
The gender marker.
Yes.
The name, fine. But the gender marker, we still have.
And we're in court for that as well.
How did you transition?
How did I transition? I got support. I got support from family, friends, and some organizations that exist for this purpose. I will give a shout out to one organization called Jinsi Yangu that mainly works with transgender persons. They don't give you the surgeries or the hormones. No. But what they do is they link you with people that are like you. And you will be surprised how much of a difference it makes in your life. The first time I met a transgender man who was like me, and he's a very old guy. Unfortunately, he passed on. But he became like a father figure to me because he made me say, oh, really, it's possible. You were transitioning in the 60s, in the 50s, you're old. And so they connect you to people, which is great, absolutely amazing. And then we have organizations such as the Kenya Human Rights Commission that assist people when it comes to the legalities of this. How do you change your name? And they're also coming in when it comes to human rights violations, such as this case for SC. Yeah.
Just to respond to Emmanuel Templar, Adrian identifies as a man.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But Adrian, you were born with female genitalia, female organs.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Now, we're talking about the transition. Transition does not have to mean that you go and change that. Or to get the hormonal. You just social transition is enough. You don't have to do all three.
Yes.
But you would like, obviously,
Yes.
that all three are possible. First,
Yes.
the legal enabling the other two.
So in an ideal world, Latif, in an ideal world, all transgender persons are able to transition fully and live as per their gender identity, right? However, we have to understand, because especially on the medical, I'm visually very careful because of what I call pathologization, right? Not every transgender person is able to medically transition. And one of the arguments that the ODPP and the Office of the AG were making is, but this person medically, we can see a few things, but itafika ile yenye tunaweza sema, but not every...
I see what you...
Not every transgender person can be able to, number one, afford to medically transition. Number two, even medically. There are people who have high blood pressure. There are people who have heart conditions, and it makes it very... it makes it very difficult for them to be able to medically transition. And so if we put it as a mark that if you've not done this medically, then you're not, and that's not it's not the case. It's not the thing,
Right.
So just again, and forgive me if I get too personal here. In your case, right? Your brain told you you're a dude, okay? Did also the brain, is it the brain also that told for example, your face to grow a beard?
I'm glad you're mentioning the beard and not the receding hairline.
I was going to come there.
I feel like it's mostly guys who see their own receding hairline.
I don't.
It goes over. And so, like, now you've mentioned it, you can see it. It wasn't there before.
It's like us on the forehead.
It's like
my forehead is so big. No one had looked at your forehead.
Your hairline is fine.
I can see the cameraman zooming, but it's okay. So, so I have medically transitioned. I am one of the, again, like I said, I present myself here, and I'm one of the most fortunate transgender persons. I've been able to go through school. I've been able to medically transition fully, and I've been able to achieve some level of legal transition.
So if you were not, if you had not gone through this medical transition, what would it be like in terms of just us looking at you? So if you're looking at Adrian, so you'd not be having a beard.
No, I wouldn't have a beard.
You likely would not have a beard.
No, I wouldn't be having.
Would you likely be having boobs?
So I would probably not. I wouldn't have a beard, but that 4 o'clock shadow that people have, I would have that. As to my expression, I wish I had photos of how I looked, so you could show the audience. But there was no contestation. Can I talk about the time where I was in police custody?
Yes.
So that because at that time it was around 2020, towards the end of the year, my friend and I, another transgender man, we had just started transitioning socially, and we had now started doing the process of the legal transition. I had not started medically transitioning. And we were in a restaurant, we were eating, and after we forgot to put our masks back on. So our masks were sagging on our chins, and we were rolled up by cops. We were put in the Mariamu, and we were taken to a station. So what happens when you get to the station? For the people who've never been arrested, they separate you, men and women. Do you know the place myself and my friend went? To the men's side. And there was no contestation. So we go to the male side, and we go to the end, so that we're the last people, because we know we have problems because of our IDs. So when they get to me, because I was before him, they get to me, they look at my ID, and my ID is reading Anita. They look at me and they said,
Ala.
Kijana acha mchezo.
Idea sister.
Hatuna wakati.
Hatuna time.
Hebu simama hapo kando. Goes to my friend now. Takes the ID. Sees the same problem. Na nyinyi mmetoka wapi? What are these problems mnaniletea? And the problem starts there. So what can you imagine that at that point, even without medically transitioning, I was still.
So the cop could see.
This is a guy.
You are male, you are a man.
Kijana unaleta mchezo.
So the assumption here is that you are using your sister's ID,
Yes.
stolen an ID,
Yes.
you don't have an ID, you
Yes.
are impersonating, and so on.
Actually, the condition to which you were released is they said this might be underage people and they're wondering how to navigate this thing. So they are using their siblings, but msifanye hivyo tena kijana, enda tafuta kitambulisho yako. Toka pata tusikuone tena. So that is the only way we were able to escape. Now, of course, we were, I'm not getting into the gruesome details, but it was very traumatic because we were not sure we would live there without being assaulted. And I remember at some point now when they wanted to put us in, because they wanted to book us either way, they said, makosa ni mbili, huna kitambulisho na namba pili hujavaa mask. And so before you are put in, for those who don't know, you must be searched. Because you might have weapons and you might end up hurting the other inmates inside there. So now on the search, the question of now who is supposed to search us. They didn't think much. See, that's a dude came and they were searching us. But then at the point of search, they were like, "Hey, wait, this doesn't feel very normal. Wait, what's going on here?" You know. So it was a very traumatic experience, but luckily we were able to get out. But you see, that was not the same for SC.
There's
we're at like a minute to time.
Oh gosh,
or so, but yeah, go ahead.
I've even forgotten my question.
Yeah.
It was around social integration, but it has just floated away. Yes. Oh yes. Now, without the gender marker changing on your ID, what's the way forward for trans people in Kenya?
Yes.
Legally, if the gender marker does not change, and then it's still, because I still see the confusion with you walking into a building, Adrian, male, but gender marker says female.
So you'll be surprised that many times people don't check the gender marker. If they read Adrian, they know Adrian is a dude's name, they look at me, it's fine.
Move on.
Yeah, so it's easier to navigate. However, still sometimes there are questions that come up, especially when you're in the airport. With regards to integration, of course, we cannot fully integrate, because now when you look at even medical services, it becomes a little bit difficult, right? And so that is why one of our calls to action is that we would like to welcome the Office of the AG, the Office of the National Registration, and other relevant ministries, members of parliament, to please come on board, open your doors. We've been really knocking. Open your doors so that we can have these conversations as to how best to integrate transgender persons. Yeah.
Okay, that's a very good call to action. Quick fire until our director says time out. Until he's shouting our ear, I'll keep going. This is just a quick fire, Adrian.
Yeah.
These again questions from the public.
Okay.
So I think you can excuse, because it's questions from the public, right?
It's fine, yeah.
So Kelvin Wanyonyi, most of the time it's crisis identity caused by traumatic childhood experiences, like broken families. That's what I believe he's saying.
Okay.
Is as a result of gender identity.
Yes.
Yeah. What's your quick response, which you've already spoken to?
Let me respond. No. That's not true. Many people think that is the case, but it is not. I have to give myself as an example. My parents have been married happily for the longest time since I was born. I think more than 30 years now. They are still together. I am friends with my family. I'm friends with my siblings. I'm friends with my extended family. No issues at all. So no broken family, and that's not the case. It's not caused by trauma.
I think it's because we want to explain.
100%.
Explain.
Yeah. Still Mike the one. Good morning, fellow fixers. This is what society is about. Honestly, this subject should be taught for more people to stay aware. Ribsy says there's a difference between transgender and intersex. I actually think they were replying to Emmanuel.
Yeah, good.
Matilda says, I've learned a lot from this session. Thank you, Adrian, for sharing your story. And then I think, let's see, there's a few others. Yes, Adrian, my bro, that's breakthrough. But not all of them look like men before transition. It's almost like they're having a conversation.
Yeah.
Dennis Mungai, for a country as conservative as ours, recognition, acceptance, stigma of transgender is a long shot. The fear is adopting norms like the West and then shoving it into daily life.
So if we talk about the West, I think we've already mentioned that this existed even pre-colonial context. And what makes people think that it's a Western ideology, first of all, number one, is the fact that colonization happened, and it happened very effectively, right? And so we are taught to shame cultures and things like that. And so people think, oh, no, it's not like that. It was never like that. But that's not really the case. And I've given examples in Uganda, of the Zulu as well. Yeah. And also there are conversations that where people happen and they say, oh, but these people, they change their minds and things like that. But that's a lie. Over 99% of transgender persons who transition live a full life, and they do not detransition. The ones that detransition is 1%. And of the 1%, 80% state that the reason they detransitioned is because the society was extremely hostile. So how are we going to accommodate transgender persons? Open your arms, be respectful, be kind, uphold their dignity, respect them, love them. We are human beings just like you.
I love that. Yeah. I have one final question for you. This is regards to sexuality. There's the question of why trans people are included in the LGBTQ umbrella, given that this is a gender identity, not sexuality.
So, when you're giving me this at 1 minute.
That's such a good question.
Sorry.
So, in the it's the LGBTQI, and in the LGBTQI there are a number of issues. There are issues of sexual orientation, and then there are issues of gender identity. So for trans and intersex persons, it's issues of sex and gender identity. For the rest, it's an issue of sexual orientation. And unfortunately, you guys only called me for an hour. Would have stayed for another one and talked about now sexual orientation, what these other people are, and things like that.
Are you dating?
Am I?
Are you dating?
Is there someone in the audience that asked if I was single?
Yeah. Are you?
Yes, I am seeing someone.
Okay.
Yes.
And you'd get married and start a family or something?
With legal recognition, I would be able to do that. Without it, I wouldn't. Again, remember, without an ID that is corresponding to who I am, everything else is locked.
Okay. Adrian,
thank you,
Adrian. So much.
Right.
Yeah, thank you for this conversation. Very important. You're right. This one needs Aquaground a 2-hour session because it's really about learning. So thank you very much. Thank you to all our guests. Thank you to all of you, our fixers. We'll see you tomorrow, 6 a.m. Up next, there's a live event. You'll see it on your screen shortly. Jackson can give us more details. And on radio, you'll have Claudia Naisabo and Brian Aseli on Vibe Shift. From us, Janet Vogwa, Eric Latif, Mariam Bisha, thank you for staying with us. All these conversations are uploaded on the NTV Kenya page on YouTube under Fixing the Nation. But we'll see you tomorrow, 6 a.m.